From homes that do not have direct access in Cape Coral, you'll need to pass under at least one bridge on the way to the Gulf of Mexico. But there are two different types of bridges. Let's talk about them. Hey everyone, if we've never met, my name is David Meyers. I'm a real estate agent with EXP Realty here in Cape Coral, Florida. I specialize in waterfront property in Cape Coral, and I have done ever since 2003. Now, one of the things that I was going to talk about later this week is the value differences between properties that are on the Gulf access side of the bridges and on the indirect access side of the bridges. Gulf access properties, you can go to the Gulf with no bridges in your path. And the indirect access properties, you have to go under at least one bridge between your house and the actual Caloosahatchee River and ultimately the Gulf of Mexico, if that's where you're going. But I wanted to mention that there are actually two types of bridges in Cape Coral. There are bridges that are predominantly square, where the span goes square across the waterway. And there are bridges that are radiused, that are more like a tunnel. Now, these bridge heights are outlined on the maps that are available through the Board of Realtors. So the Board of Realtors maps that I send out to people, and a few people have already requested them, they have the bridge heights labeled where there are bridges. But there's no identifying mark as to whether that bridge is the tunnel type bridge or whether that bridge is, a squared off type bridge. And here's why that's important. Every boat has what's called an air draft, whether it has a T-top or a bimini top, or it's a sailboat or a powerboat, or whether it's a powerboat with no top at all, it has what's called an air draft. And your air draft is the distance from the water line to the highest point on the boat that's immovable. Now, a lot of times, the very highest point on the boat is going to be your VHF antenna, and then the second highest point on the boat is going to be your all-around white light, if those are on top of a T-top or a hard top. Now, those fold down. So if your house is behind a bridge, you can keep them folded down and just put them up when you get offshore. So the hardest point on the boat is going to be somewhere on your T-top. If your boat has a radar, obviously that's going to be the highest point. But if your boat doesn't have a radar, then the highest point is going to be the structure on the very top of the T-top or hard top. Now, the reason that it's important when you have a radius bridge versus a square bridge is even though there's some crown to the top of the T-top, it's predominantly square. And when you try to put something that's got a predominantly flat top through a bridge that has a radius top, the radius bridge is going to actually have less clearance than what's indicated on the nav chart or the map. So that's something that I wanted to bring to your attention, because if you go through Unit 67 to 64 and up the Gloriana Canal, when you get to the end of the Gloriana Canal, the bridge under Cape Coral Parkway is one of those radius-style bridges. So if it says it's 8.5 or 10 feet tall, you have to take into consideration that it's only that height at the very peak of the radius. And as that radius comes down, your boat is going to be, there's going to be a line corded across that radius that's going to reduce your actual bridge height. So if you already have a boat and you know what your air draft is, or the distance from the water line to the highest rigid point on the boat, you're going to have to take into consideration, if you have to pass under a radiused bridge, that height may be less depending on the shape of the top of your boat and what accessories are affixed to the top of it. Okay, so I'm going to do a video later about the values of properties on, sailboat access versus indirect access, but I just wanted to make you aware that there are actually two types of bridges, and you have to know about that. They're not shown on the charts. So when we start working together, I'll fill you in if you have to go under a radiused bridge if you already have a boat. If you don't already have a boat and you're shopping for a boat, all boats that come with like a rigid T-top installed will have a spec for either bridge clearance or air draft. And that's something to pay attention to if you're thinking about buying a house behind the bridge. Now, there are benefits to buying houses behind the bridges, and one of those benefits is that property values, the actual value of the land, is less behind the bridge. So with an identical budget, buying a house in the sailboat access section versus buying a house in the parts of town that are behind the bridges, you actually get more house for your money. Because if you had a $700,000 budget, just to throw a round number out there, if you're on sailboat access at $700,000 in the yacht club, the lot value might be $500,000 or more, which only leaves $200,000 left for the actual house that's sitting on the lot. Behind the bridge, the lot might be worth $350,000 or $300,000, which would give you a $400,000 structure on top of that house. So you get a lot more house for the money. And it's up to you to determine whether the bridges are an issue. People that are just going to buy a pontoon boat, or just going to buy a small center console or a small dual console boat that might have a bimini top, doesn't matter. It's only just a little bit of extra travel time from your house to the river. It's a minutes to the river thing. It's not really a deal breaker because the boat is too tall. But I do know people that have center console boats with rigid T-tops and radar and all kinds of other things that live behind bridges. The drawback is they can't get out sometimes. In the summertime, when the tide is high, the tide is extra high. When the wind is out of the south, the river is actually higher and all the tides are higher. So in the summertime, the bridge clearance heights are actually lower. In the wintertime, when the wind is out of the north, everything gets drained down a bit and there's a little bit of extra distance. So in the wintertime, it's not really a problem because the winter low tides are exceptionally low and the high tides are lower as well. So this is just something I wanted to bring to your attention, that there are two different types of bridges. The radius bridges, like the one that goes under Cape Coral Parkway at the Gloriana, it's going to have less overall clearance because of the fact that you're putting a square peg through a round hole. Other bridges, like the bridge under Del Prado coming into Unit 6, the W and V streets, that bridge is predominantly square, so you're not going to have as much of an issue. So as you're looking at the maps and you're looking at bridge heights, if you already have a boat, keep in mind that some of those bridges are radius. There are a bunch of them going out to the Spreader Canal on the west side of town. And, we'll talk about other issues with the west side of town, the primary one being the boat lock. I'll talk about that in future videos. All right. If you have questions about bridge heights, air drafts, different types of boat tops, any of this kind of stuff, feel free to call me. Even if you're not ready to buy yet, if you have questions and you're in the beginning stages of looking at waterfront property, now's the time to get them all cleared up so you don't waste a bunch of time looking at properties that in the end will not meet your needs. Okay. My cell phone number to which you can call or text is 239-529-0555. My email address is waterfrontluxury@gmail.com. All right. If you're watching this video on Facebook, you can like my page so that when new videos come up, you'll be alerted. If you're watching this video on YouTube, then you can subscribe to my channel and hit the bell notification. That way, every time I put a new video out, you'll be alerted right away. I'm putting out a lot of content right now so that everybody can get all this information and digest it on your own, which is not to say that I'm not willing to help you if you have questions, because I am. So if there's anything that I can do for you or any kind of questions I can answer, any way I could be helpful, whether it's relative to waterfront property here in Cape Coral or just real estate in general in Southwest Florida, please get in touch. And until then, I'll see you out on the waterfront.